on? Can you hear me on the? Okay.
We're not recording this.
Okay.
Yep, you're on.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Thank you. All right, are you ready to record, Brian? Is it not working? Okay. Would it be all right if, do you want me to wait a minute till he logs in? Just want to make sure we get our meeting recorded on the Zoom. Just a moment. All right, sounds good. Well, since we are recording and it's 6:01, I'll call tonight's Public Works Properties and Sustainability Committee meeting to order. It's Tuesday, June 6, 2023. We do have a quorum, and the agenda was properly posted? Perfect, thank you. And this is a hybrid meeting, so we do have some attendees on Zoom as well as a number of folks in the room. So we can move on then to public appearances, public's opportunity to speak about any subject that is not a specific agenda item. I believe most folks are here for a specific agenda item. Is there anyone that would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? Okay, great. Then we can move on to, we do have Josh with us tonight, and he has a time crunch. So he was wondering if he could do his quick engineer's report at the top of the agenda. So I'd like to move that ahead. It should just take a few moments. Josh, I can turn that over to you then.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so just kind of talking through the engineering report. There's a handful of things going on still in the village, you know, in construction season. You'll see in the report, you know, Shady Grove subdivision, still some restoration items and some final completion things that they need to do, especially at their infiltration basins. And they were kind of waiting on building some of those homes so that QC could come in and then kind of clean out those infiltration basins at the end after some of the sediment from some of the home building kind of takes place. So that's kind of anticipated, and they also have to put surface course asphalt on out there after a handful of the building gets placed. They haven't really given us a time when they wanted to do that. They've mentioned June, July kind of this year, but we haven't really pinned down a date. Authentics, Cottage Grove, that's across the street from where you guys are sitting. We're still working on one sanitary sewer dip out there. They fixed one. There's still debate on one of the others. We met with them today. We addressed, you know, we gave them our concerns for that, and we're going to do a little more televising, and we're going to discuss how to move forward. The village also has the parking lot for the dog park and a little bit of restoration around that wall that has to be completed. So the dog park kind of finish up with the parking lot and the sidewalk and stuff over there as part of that development. Some of the other developments, Cottage Grove Commons, you know, that all those apartments over there, they have still some storm water and some storm basin work that has to be done. Some of those basins have been silted in during construction, so we've you know, commented on that. We're watching that closely. First Choice Dental came and had a couple submittals in April, and then late at the end of April and into March, they pulled their erosion control permit, so they're ready to get started over there along Cottage Grove Road. Drumlin Trail Towers also had in May had a plan review to come for another addition to a building over in their development there, and that was approved, and they're moving forward. Quick Trip also had a little bit left on their site out along County Trunk Highway N. So they had sidewalk that they still had to connect now that all that sidewalk's along there. They just finished that up. And Mike Hackle even pointed out that the last time they remodeled that building, they actually filled in infiltration basin. That was before we were starting to do work with the village, but we got some of the past information, and they actually fixed that basin over in that corner. So they're pretty much done with their site, and it's up to what was approved a couple of years ago for that facility. As far as just public works projects, just a couple things to discuss. The rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the intersection of Limestone Pass were installed finally. They were waiting on equipment there for that. I see there's a topic on the solar, so I'm just going to cover both of those right now. The solar panels are up on the roof. We've been waiting on equipment. So there is I forget what it's called, an AC combiner panel and a disconnect piece of electrical equipment for this to kind of get it up and running. The installers have contacted the suppliers. Like we've seen in all electrical across the board over the last couple of years, everything has been majorly delayed. So they're being told that there's a potential that it's all the way to August 1st before some of those supplies are delivered. They have kind of another date in July, but we're just going to keep tabs, and they said they were going to continue to contact their supplier. So at this point, I mean, it's all in place. We're just waiting on a couple pieces just to finish it up. And then lastly, the 23 streets improvements this year is going to involve a pulverization of Crawford Drive. It's going to be from Oak Street, Cottage Grove Road. There's going to be a little bit of spot concrete driveway, concrete curb, a little bit of stormwater and inlet repairs as part of that, but it should be a fairly quick project. Wolf Excavating got that out of Madison for right around just under the $220,000, which fits into Brian's budget for those improvements. So other than that, is there any kind of questions on the village engineering side?
Any questions for Josh? I just had one brief one on the solar. Do we need an extension for the contractor since they're waiting? Sounds like this is an extenuating circumstance. They aren't going to be charged for not completing on time.
Yeah, you're right. There's typically like you would mention like liquidated damages or something for construction, right? And a lot of times, yeah, that's in the contract and it's for their delays or if they weren't, they're performing. In this case, everything's there. We're just kind of waiting on a couple pieces. So they haven't really mentioned, extending the deadline. The deadline has now, come up. We'll have conversations with them a little bit on that, and maybe I'll come back to this group next month with just a little bit of clarity on that end. And I'll talk to Rick a little bit about it too, and staff to see, how we should handle that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks. Any other questions for Josh? All right, thanks so much. I appreciate it. So with that, we also then covered update on solar panels. So then we'll move on to new business, discuss and consider direction on Forest Drive, Arbory Court, North Main Street green space. A little background on this. We've talked about this for a couple of months on this piece of property since Chris is newer to the committee, has had somewhat of a brief background. So we're talking about the village-owned property that's behind a number of houses between Main Street and Forest and then next to Arbory Court. And made aware recently there's some maintenance that some of the residents were doing on the property, so that led us to investigate further on how that's maintained and the relationship that the village has with that property. It doesn't have a direct access to it from the public right-of-way. So I don't know, Brian, you want to add any additional background before we?
There is a narrow easement that's accessible off of Forreston, but for our equipment to get in there is going to be a little tough. But that's all. I just wanted to.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks, Jeff. So there was a letter sent out to residents to have, as a result of committee discussions on this, to have any built structures, any structures at all removed from the property. And we had some neighbors then visit last month asking us to reconsider how that would be used. So we added this back to agenda this month for further discussion on what to do with this property. Do you have anything to add, Rick, before we get, okay. So we do have a number of registrants for this item. So I'll just go through the forms that I have here, and then if anyone else has a form, they can bring it forward. or if anyone decides then they want to speak at the end of all these, they will have a chance to do that. So the first form I have is from Suzanne Warburg at 229 Forreston Drive to support the green space maintenance. And you had said that you wanted to speak? You want to change the order? You want to lead us off? Okay, all right. And you can bring
Rick?
up to the...
Hey, Rick. Are we able to ask questions at this time, or is...
There's an on button on
Yep.
the mic.
I mean, ask questions.
To turn on the mic.
Okay.
Test.
Okay.
I mean, there could be, typically it would just be like a public comment page.
Say their piece. And... Okay. Sure, okay.
We're just clarifying with village attorney on the order for anyone online that couldn't hear. We'll do all the public comment, and then we'll have discussion with the board. If we have any specific questions, we could
Yeah, we can always
address them
ask, well,
for any
somebody
clarification.
else to answer it.
Okay. Thanks, Rick. So if you'd start off with your name and address for the record, please.
Name is Ed DeMayo. Address is 229 Forreston Drive, Cottage Grove. I appreciate you taking the time to hear from us and all of us in the neighborhood. This is a very important topic to us, not only for ourselves, our families, and for our children. At the last meeting, you allowed me to read in a letter to explain, what our thought process was and how we came to become involved in this project with yourselves. Is there any reason to reread in that letter, or is it already on record?
The letter was already in the record. A copy was provided to us, and you had a copy in advance as well, Brian?
And is there any questions or anything from the board itself that was unclear about the letter and the position of all neighbors that bounded the property?
I don't believe so.
All right, excellent.
If something comes up in, after our comment section, we'll follow up. Thank you.
So with that being said, and the letter being in and on record, I would like to turn it over to Suzanne Warburger, who is going to provide to you a reading from many of the children in the neighborhood that utilize this green space. Right? They are all of our neighbors. Our property's back to that green space. And we're going to tell you why it's important and how it's important. Some of these children are here today, and from the looks on their faces, they're probably brave enough to come up here and read. And we should be very proud of them that they have that capability. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne and your three future constituents.
All right, Suzanne Warburg, 229 Forreston Drive. So I'm here. I support the use and the maintenance of the green space as it has been, as the letter said, without encroachment, destruction of the existing forest and wetland boundaries. And I think it's important to maintain this space for the use of really our whole neighborhood. I maintain it not just for me, but really for my neighbors. So at any given time, any given night that you might come to visit us, you're more likely to see, Stella, who lives across the street from me, across from the green space, or Nora, who lives down the street, running through the green space behind my home, more likely to see one of them than you are my own children or myself. I regularly see Colin, followed by Tommy, followed by Braden, who's here tonight, streaking across the yards, through the back of my yard, through the green space, through Steve's, through Dave, yelling train, because they're looking, to the sound of the train at Hydrate, right? Just using this space as a place to play. And, you've got Nora, little Nora and Sammy, I can watch them looking for a bunny or finding flowers in the green space. And, for us, there's nothing better on a Friday night, come home from work and join three other families, who are out there socializing in the common space behind the houses. And for me, you know, in a world where there's more free-range chickens than there are free-range children, you know, our neighborhood really is a free-range space because the developer gave us this, you know, really precious space to care for and to share with each other. And so my ask would that, you know, please don't take that away from this neighborhood, from these families who share it as it was intended to, and maintain it as such. So I'll start, I'm representing 8 neighborhood children who can't be here tonight, and then the 3 that can. So I'll start, this is from Tommy, who lives Forreston Drive. He is 9 years old and in 3rd grade. Let me see if I have an address. No, I don't have an exact address. He says the green space is important to him because my friends and I play tag and baseball, and we also like to explore. We have Landon Stelzer, who lives at 229 Forreston Drive, 13 years old in 7th grade. And the green space is important to Landon because I can hang out with my friends and play tag and other games. Also, I'm able to do my school science observations from a single spot. In the nighttime, it's fun to watch the deer and to catch fireflies. This is from Brooklyn Core, who is 14 years old and in 8th grade. The green space is important to me because I get to babysit the kids while we play hide and seek, tag, and house, and even more. I remember playing back in the backyards when I was little. This land space is very important to me. Hello, my name is Nora. I live at 237 Forreston Drive. I am 6 years old and in kindergarten. The green space is important to me because I like to see deer and play and play outside and hide. Hello, my name is Sam. I live at 233 Forreston Drive. I am 6 years old and in 1st grade. The green space is important to me because I play with friends, I sunbathe in the sun, and drink beverages. Hello, my name is Nora. We have 2 Noras. I live at 303 Forreston Drive. I am 11 years old and in 5th grade. The green space is important to me because I enjoy the green space with my friends, and I like to hike, and we like to play hide and seek. It's better than running through the road. We have a comment here from Evelyn Stelzer, 229 Forreston Drive. I'm 15 years old and in 9th grade. The green space is important to me because I enjoy watching the little kids run through it and make memories. As a kid, my brother and I would catch lightning bugs in the green space and use them as nightlights. My Girl Scout troop has also used it to camp for earning badges. I also like to play with the little kids in the forest and watch them grow up. And last I have, hello, my name is Colin. I live at 237 Forreston Drive. I am 9 years old and in 3rd grade, almost in 4th. The green space is important to me because it's a good place for science experiments. It's also a good space for running games like tag, spider tag, and more. It is also a great place for forts. It's a good place for sports, fun, and climbing, and that's why I like the green space. And that's the last of the comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. The next form I have is from Mia Nelson and Jim Nelson at 233 Forreston Drive, and would like to make a comment. I think the microphone's still on. Thank you, Mia.
Hello, my name is Mia, and I live at 233 Wisconsin 53527 Cottage Grove. I am 9 years old and in 3rd grade. The green space is important to me because I can do science projects, play hide and seek, play tag, make forts, elementary, play sports and have fun, and we can also climb.
Thank you, Mia.
Thank you.
Thanks. The next form I have is from Braden Seaver at 112 Arbory Court.
Hello, my name is Braden Severson. Hello, my name is Braden Severson. I live at 112 Arbory Court. I am 8 years old and in 2nd grade. The green space is important to me because it's a good area to run with my friends and I can explore in the forest.
And you see Haley's head?
Yeah.
All right.
Hello, my name is Haley Severson. I live at 112 Arbory Court. I'm 11 years old and in 5th grade. The green space is important to me because we get to run through it and it's way safer than running through the road. And also, we get to see animals. And wildlife.
Thank you, Haley. I have, Ed, did you have any other? I had your form then on the bottom, sorry, you covered everything you wanted to say.
I'll finish up if nobody else wants to.
Okay. Were there any other members in the audience or online that would like to make a comment? Okay, then if you'd like, thank you.
So as you can see, this space is vitally important to us as a neighborhood and a community. Hopefully that came across. What we are asking you for as a village board that is entrusted with maintaining the integrity of the community and our space and creating an environment for children to grow up in is that we would like to continue to maintain that space as it's been maintained for the last 32 years. At some point in time ago, and I don't know the exact date, probably 18-ish years ago, the village stopped maintaining the property back there and the neighborhood association took it over. We as neighbors looked at each other and said, we're more than happy to take this over and maintain this space because we all use it, not only for the people that back directly to the property. You heard from children and other neighbors that are across the street that are down the road. They all use that property. Right? We use it together. Especially in the last 3 years during COVID, it was vitally important for us to have that sense of community when many things were starting to be pulled apart from us. That was a place that we could all gather and feel safe, right? Maintain distance, do all the things that we were supposed to do, but have some level of engagement as a community. We're asking you to allow us to continue to do that in the manner in which we've done for the last 18 to 20 years. Any questions from any members of the board that you may have of myself or us as the community?
Sorry, go ahead, Eric. Thanks. Although you don't have a microphone, and we do have some participants online, if they wouldn't. Thank you.
Is there an active HOA for the area, like this subdivision area, like a homeowners association or some formal organization like that?
I do not believe that there's an active. I know that we, as a member of the Forest Drive, do not pay an HOA fee, and I don't believe that anybody else is paying an HOA fee. Again, the dollars that we spend are spent from our own pockets to maintain that property so that it can be used by everybody in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
As we have our discussion, then we can ask for any clarification or any other questions as we discuss, options and how to move forward. Does that sound? I don't want to make you stay, but
Sure.
you're more than
No,
welcome
no.
to stay there if you like.
My question would be as to, and I think everybody here has probably the same question in their head, is what does the next step look like? Is that a discussion that happens at this point in time
Yep, it
amongst
is on the
yourselves?
agenda.
Okay.
Yep, on tonight, so unless there's some kind of follow-up needed that we have to do some more research on, I would hope that we could, it is a discuss and consider, so we should have some kind
Okay.
of decision. If you want
Okay.
to stick around and
Absolutely.
listen to the discussion, and we can call you if we have other questions.
Yeah, and I guess I would like you to ask one more time if anybody else has anything else that they would like to state for the record. Otherwise, again, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. And thank you to all those that made comments. I appreciate it. Are there any other public comments on this item? Then we can, actually, you're right, Brian. Thank you. I did have a number of 3 emails to go through briefly. I'll just read those for the record and pass them on to you, Kristen, also. So these are all addressed to Brian Peterson, Public Works Director. Dear Mr. Peterson, please accept this as our public comment for the Public Works and Sustainability Committee Agenda Item 5, discuss and consider direction on Forreston Drive, Arbory Court, North Main Street, Green Space. We are in support of allowing residents of the Forreston Drive, Arbory Court to continue using and maintaining the green space. Thank you for your consideration, Brian and Courtney Stickney at 237 Forreston Drive. Mr. Peterson, please accept this email as an official public comment. We live on Arbory Court and we have 2 school-aged children. We moved in almost 5 years ago and immediately felt a sense of community in our neighborhood. Our children, 11 and 8 years old, were welcomed by several other children of similar ages and play daily in the green space behind Forreston Drive. We feel a sense of security that our children can run and play in a safe environment. If that space were to go back to its natural state, the children of this neighborhood would be affected the most. The opportunity for our children to run from one child's house to another in open green space is a unique benefit that we appreciate having in this neighborhood. We can trust that our children are safe, and that brings us peace of mind as parents. We ask that the green space stays as it currently is and continues to be maintained by our neighbors. Thank you for your consideration, Matt and Nicole Severson at 112 Arbory Court. And finally, hello, Mr. Peterson. Please accept this email as my official public comment. I would like to register in strong support for allowing the residents of Forreston Drive, Arbory Court to continue to use and maintain this green space as it has been done for the last 32 years. Thank you, Cynthia Kelm-Nelson at 233 Forreston Drive. So those are the 3 letters that I have. Did you receive any others? Okay. All right. Then I would open this up then for questions, comments, thoughts from the committee.
I guess I'm curious, excuse me. Has anybody bought their house since the village stopped maintaining that? When you bought the house, did they tell you where the lot line was, or did you think it went all the way back to the tree line, or?
In our case,
Sorry, I'm sorry, could you just hold the microphone so that the people online could hear you? Sorry.
so we're 229, and I bought in 2013. And she didn't walk me specifically through, but in our case, it's pretty clear. There's a tree line there of what to me would appear as unnatural trees. They're quaking aspens. They were clearly planted there, and that's sort of the big defining line. And then, that's the clear defining forest line.
Oh.
That's village space. So what was grass was kind of like, hey, keep mowing what's grass. So it's clear then the division between like what I would call the forest boundary, if you will. In our case, there's trees that clearly define that, and everything else was just mow.
When did they tell you where the line was? Like, it looks like you got a couple corners of maybe evergreens or something. Did they tell you that that's pretty much where your property ended, or did you think it went back to the tree?
Oh, no. The property, what is owned in my case is very clearly, like there's 2 stakes there.
Okay.
And so I guess the landscaping that was there is the landscaping that was there. And then it was kind of like, hey, just mow what's behind you because no one else is coming to mow it, right? So I think it's clear that what is behind us does not belong to us, if that's kind of part of it, yeah. That was clear upon purchase.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Jim Nelson. I'm at 233 Forreston Drive, and I'm in pretty much the same boat. We purchased our house in 2011, and we knew, due to the electrical boxes and through our realtor, what our lot line was. The people that were selling it to us said yes, they had a big place set back there, and they said yes, your lot line goes to here. They didn't really specifically state where the lot line was, but they're like, that's village property back there.
Okay.
They used to mow it. They put in drain tile to let the, assist the water to go down to the marsh area. But yeah, so we knew where the lot line stopped, and we kept maintaining it as we go. There's even a little cutaway where there's another big lift station, manhole cover that we're like, we clean that out. So if the village needs to go back there, they can see it. Otherwise, it would be buried under grass and debris. But yeah, same situation. Thank you.
More questions, comments from committee members?
I have a question for Rick. Is this designated a green space, like technically, and how is that different than other designations?
So the plat just says it's dedicated to the public. So I don't have the the full plat in front of me, but like the map that shows this area just says dedicated to the public. So whenever that was in 1987. So it's described as the green space. I mean, it's sort of like an outlot, right? So there's not necessarily a designated use to it. So it wasn't dedicated as parkland per se. It was just to the public. So the village owns it, sort of, I guess, holds it in trust as public property. So I wouldn't say it was specifically designated as green space, but it's just village property at this point.
So technically, legally, it's no different than the lawn to the east of Village Hall. Like, it is village-owned property.
Yes, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any private property or structures on there right now, on the village property?
So there is now correct me if I'm wrong, folks, I believe it's a sauna that, let me get rid of this. Right where my cursor is, not sure what house number that is, maybe the folks here could help, but I believe it's a sauna that's out there as a permanent structure. We have other things that have been, obviously the golfing green is not permanent, but I think there was a skate rink that was just put in last winter, or maybe prior to that, I'm not sure. We just noticed it last fall when we were back there, but permanent structures, it's just that one sauna. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. I believe that's.
Is the person who owns the sauna here, or? Okay. Okay.
So I can't really see the map from this angle, but I think it probably, yes, it bisects potentially the property line there. If that is a very significant issue for the village, it is not a permanent structure. It has the ability to be moved by a couple feet to get it back into the property. So if that's a requirement, Suzanne and myself will make sure that that's done within a reasonable amount of time. Probably take a little electrical work and some strong bodies to move it, but it's not an obstacle to the overall goal, the overarching goal of the neighborhood to maintain the green space as is.
I don't know if this is yours as well, but I'm just looking, it looks like it's in your property if you take the line straight back. Well, not your property, but behind your property. Is it like a patio and a fireplace right there in the middle there too?
Yeah, I'll let you speak to that. You purchased.
Yeah, given that this obviously was not an issue for a long, long time, the sauna placement was placed within a constrained previous landscaping. So when I purchased the home, there was a sprawl of landscaping from the back all the way to the forest line. And so the sauna was placed where we thought, right, was within the landscape boundary that was already there. And the same is true for the fire pit. It's like a sand fire area with a fire pit in the middle. Again, sort of everything has been brought smaller than when I purchased the property. So that was a piece of what was already there. Again, kind of trying to bring everything a little bit closer than it was before, but not tear everything out.
And there also looks like there's, I don't know, there's a little green square.
Yes,
I don't
that
know.
is a seasonal golf cage that was, well, the cage isn't up, given this conversation, so it's a seasonal
So it's
golf
like a,
mat.
it's like a pad,
It's
and then you
mat,
just put a
yep.
thing up?
We put
Okay.
a rug down during COVID, again, for the neighborhood to come back.
Oh, okay.
And we erect a net to catch the balls, and everybody sort of, you know, has the opportunity to use it. Comes down to the
So another question for you, Rick. Thank you very much. Sorry if this is a hypothetical, but I want to just understand the legality of everything. Say the lawn over here by Village Hall. If I lived next to it and the grass was too long, and if I said I wanted to mow it to match my grass, am I trespassing? Am I doing anything illegal? And does the village have any right to say they're breaking a law or anything like that?
It's an interesting question, 'cause, again, it's not park space, right? So if it was a public park, anybody can use it. Here with it just being this vague, dedicated to the public, it's really unclear. Like, my best guess of what the property is for is just like water management purposes, stormwater. But yes, like in that hypothetical situation, the village has the absolute right to say, no, you can't come on our property. You know, this isn't a public park where it's just open to the public. This is village-owned property. We can exclude people from accessing it if we want to.
So then the direct question is, it's meant for the public, for them to use, but does maintenance is dictated by us?
Right.
And if we don't do the maintenance, I mean, is there any law being broken? Essentially, if them doing the maintenance, are they violating any ordinance or law?
If they have permission to do it, no.
Okay.
If, like, it's not a criminal trespass, I guess. I mean, it's more of a civil issue in that sense. I mean, if you're saying, no, don't come on this property, and then they are coming onto the property, it's more of a greater degree of where, okay, yeah, you're crossing into a line that's, I don't want to use the word criminal.
Right. Yeah.
Right, but, yeah, it's basically all about the village just determining what rights it wants to enforce here. So if it wants to maintain the property, or not maintain the property, but also say, these are the clear boundaries, nobody else can use it, it's village property, you know, that's the village's prerogative, I guess. I mean, there are also ways of splitting up the parcel, or, you know, I've also seen it done where it's like a common ownership. So rather than the village holding it, you know, you maintain your stormwater easement, you could just convey it to the adjacent property owners and they all have like an equal interest in it. And that way, you don't have any maintenance responsibilities. It's up to the property owners to figure.
What would that cost to do the documentation on that?
So we would need there'd be a weird process where, because it's dedicated to the public, we have to do a vacation of that, which not expensive. It's just the village deciding it's vacating it.
Okay.
Then after that vacation process, you still own it, but then you're able to convey it because at that point you've sort of removed the public trust type restriction on it. So at that point, then it's just basically a quitclaim deed to all the adjacent property owners and conveying equal interest in the property to all the
Equal
adjacent.
interest, not everybody that is adjacent to it has an equal interest in the whole piece of land.
Correct.
Okay.
So, you know, let's say you've got 10 property owners, then you just say the owners of this parcel, this parcel, this parcel have a 1/10 ownership interest.
Okay.
But again, you'd still want to maintain that stormwater easement. And so the biggest thing would just be making sure that easement is clear.
And that way, the 10 owners, whoever it is, would just police it themselves because they own it. And they would have the liability and.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Because as I've been giving this some thought of like trying to present options, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
move
I
this
like that
forward.
option, I don't know.
Um,
What do you guys think of that option?
I'm going to speak on behalf of everybody else. So
And if you don't want
please-
us to take action right now, we can delay it a month, and then you can come back if you want to think about it or get some advice on it.
Yeah, can we discuss this for a minute? Thank you.
Maybe we can, if we think of any other options as we discuss here too, or maybe Rick, I guess another follow-up I had is, if we do this here, then are there other stormwater in other neighborhoods that are like, or even say you guys can keep maintaining it the way it is and ownership will maintain, like, then we have us outlots used for stormwater in my neighborhood.
Right.
Then people start,
Yeah, that's obviously a consideration. You know, it's not like you're setting a binding precedent, but it just gives people to use that in the future. And the other sort of like consideration that I've been giving here is like, okay, let's say the village keeps the property but allow them to maintain. I think you'd want like some sort of agreement that's recorded against all the properties, like so they have notice of like, all right, you're maintaining it, but like the village responsible for like anything.
I guess that's where I get the hiccup with that pass, is how do you define the maintenance and then who's responsible? Like I think I'll speak for everybody, we're trying to find a way that these people can actually use it, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the best, but
And not have
this,
any
the way that we
not
keep
having
it,
any enforcement.
exactly, the way we keep it, I just don't know how we
We don't want to set the
enforce it.
rules on how, because if they want to put up an ice rink, let them put up an ice rink, but
But if it's
just-
still ours, then it's tough.
I know,
Yeah.
convey it, but, yeah. Because otherwise, we can't let private property on there.
If I could speak to that, Heidi, you know, regardless of the route we go with this, you know, my concern is the utility, which several of these structures are very close, if not almost, you know, these lines are a little off. They're not perfect. But that is a concern of mine, that these structures or play sets or items out there are very close to the utility. I would feel comfortable,
When you say the utility, you're talking about the water,
the stormwater.
stormwater, yeah.
Correct. If we ever have to access or get in there and do that, you know, for us to have to move structures or, you know, I would prefer not to get into a situation where, yes, there's an understanding that we have to tear this out in order to get to our utility. I would prefer that we just be proactive about this and just ask the neighbors to remove those items from those areas.
Okay.
That's just my 2 cents, and then, you know, depending on the direction that the board or the committee wants to go.
so there are easements that are defined within that, also within that piece of property? Or is it just like the whole piece of property is kind of like built in?
Yeah, so the plat had the easement line drawn on it, and I think it's like a 20-foot easement or something along those lines. So, no, I just have like the plat map, right? I don't know if there's like an actual easement agreement or like an actual like easement definition that's used right there. So that's potentially something we'd want to record against that lot, and then that it's well defined. Like if there's anything over that easement, we're gonna take it out. So we can put that in place and record that lot. That way it's very clear what the village's rights are moving forward.
Do we have a little,
Go ahead.
do we have a little discussion on one of those items?
Yeah, we did have a little bit of discussion. I thought, Jim, you opened some interesting ideas, right, that we, you know, maybe had talked about, but didn't know if it would be in consideration at all. You know, some of the thought process would be that, and I don't know the exact number of homes, I think it's 7 maybe that are on Forreston Drive and that corner of Arbery Court. I think that's what we're talking about. Is that a correct statement?
Well, I would assume, Jim, that it would be Main Street also.
It'd be what?
I would assume that it would be Main Street also you were referring to as
Well-
far as, because they are abutting.
Rick said adjacent.
Or, Rick said
Yeah.
that.
Are
But
you
it-
saying adjacent and across the street, or what would
Well,
what would you want? I don't know.
I counted 15 properties, not including Hydrite, that are touching
Okay.
this piece of land on Main Street, Forreston, and Arbor.
Yeah, we don't need to get Hydrite involved.
Yeah.
I'd like to make one statement, Rick, before you have an opportunity
for
to
it.
comment. My understanding is that the green space, or the plat, as it was originally developed, was developed, and I believe in the covenants, it officially states for the Forest Ridge subdivision. That does not include Main Street. That is not part of that subdivision.
Okay.
So from our perspective, that's the 7 homes that are adjacent. They are on Forreston Drive and they're on Arbery Court.
And nobody from Main Street is here? They
No.
don't seem to care? They've got big, huge, long
Right.
backyards?
Yeah, and it looks like the people who live on Main Street have trees in their backyard, so it's not like they're
Yeah.
gonna get
Yeah,
a lawnmower
it's
all
Just
the way
They're-
back.
it- What brought this out was somebody cutting trees from Main Street. They were
Correct.
going down into the woods and cutting it on this public.
Yeah, the properties in general on Main Street all are part of that wood line, if you
Yeah.
will. And it kind of, it's a little, probably the deepest section is behind our house at 229. It's probably 30 to maybe 50 feet deep, and it narrows as you move north. Right, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And yes, that individual wanted to cut down a significant
Yeah.
volume of the trees in there, which would then,
Yeah.
remove the natural barrier, the sound barrier,
Yeah.
everything else, and I think that's really where the first
Yeah.
issue became.
So what was the conclusion is that, I mean, you don't have everybody here, but what are your thoughts about that, conveying that?
Yeah, I think, very initially, we had some very quick discussions, so please, anybody else jump up if I fail to communicate a concern or an interest you may have had. But that if the conveyance was provided to the 7-ish homeowners that are there today, right? There's no guarantee that we are all going to be here for the rest of our lives.
Right?
At some point in time, our children are going to grow up, they're going to graduate from college, and we're going to move. Right, so how does the transference then of property work? That would be, I guess, a question.
Yeah, and we'd have to flesh it out a little bit more, right? So, it's basically this property would just be on its own. And your ownership interest is sort of tied to whoever owns the residential parcel. So, if you sell your residential, the ownership interest transfers to whoever owns the new residential parcel.
So maybe help me think about this a little bit more so I can visualize it in my head. Right, I can visualize where our house is on the street and our property. Are we just saying that we would split, potentially, that parcel into, we'd all have, again, 1/7 ownership in it, or you just extend the property line back to,
Which is easier
Yeah.
legally.
Yeah, so both would be an option, actually. It's
It's
just,
just less paperwork, less money that we have to pay you.
if we're gonna split it up, you'd really need buy-in from all the other homeowners
Yeah.
to an agreement. If we're just doing like the ownership, it's a lot simpler from, I guess, our perspective, because we're just transferring it to all of you, sort of with copy and paste warranty deed or quitclaim deed. But if we split it up, we have to do like a CSM and then do the conveyance to each one of you. So the CSM
Seems
is,
kind of pointless if they're gonna share it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you're gonna share and share alike like you're doing
Right.
now, just make common ownership, right? Then if you put up an ice rink, everybody gets to use it as a one person's property. Yeah. Right? Or do you disagree?
Jim Nelson again, 233 Forston. The worry I have if we do just allow everybody, Main Street included, if he already had intentions that were against what would be natural back there, and he already started to do that, and so that's what brought this up. So I'm worried that if we just, allow that, he will continue and do whatever he wants back there, whether it's 1/10 or all of his. So I'm a little hesitant of going that way, but yes, maintaining it more as how it's been maintained for the past 32 years. Knowing that we as the residents, we would not cut down trees or, put in a swimming pool, items like that, nothing permanent back there, but yeah, allow all of us to share it equally. Not saying he couldn't come back there and go for a walk or, but just not to permanently, for lack of a better word, damage what we have back there as a natural space.
As the previous resident noted, if this green space is dedicated to the Forest and Ridge subdivision, do we have legality to say that we can exclude the Main Street residents? I feel like both these options are kind of dependent on that regard.
Yeah, I would have to take a look at the covenants to get a better sense of that.
I feel like if the Main Street groups have to be involved, that changes your decision possibly. And so I think that result, could change things.
Yeah, and I would have to look at the covenants just to get a better sense of if we can see what the intent was for this parcel, or get a better sense of, is it just for the residents of that subdivision, or is it a broader effect? Maybe there's not an issue with including Main Street as well in the discussion. Maybe they don't care. But I would want to take a look at the covenants before giving a definitive answer on that.
The other question I had on the transferring of ownership is, would we be transferring like an impossible situation on insurance or something? Like, I know this is like very hypothetical, but how would these homeowners then insure that property?
I think it would be covered under their homeowners.
I don't know.
Wouldn't it be covered under
I
their
don't want to
homeowners?
like dump them on a.
Maybe
like,
ask an
big
insurance
condo.
agent about that before
Right.
we
Yeah.
dump this on you, but,
Yeah.
Not really sure about that one.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
say, I've seen it before, I'm not saying it's like a perfect solution. Because it'd sort of be like a common area that everybody owns. And it's kind of like a condo in a way, but not legally. Challenges when you've got equal owners for a piece. Complications, I guess.
But if they have to open an HOA to have an insurance policy on that specifically, it just want to make sure that whichever route, like they're comfortable with like knowing what they need to
Right,
do.
right.
Yeah.
Question, Heidi.
Go ahead.
Does anyone currently pay property tax on this?
No, it's village property.
It's village property. So if you divide it up and assign 1/7 to each one of the property owners, would that then be added to their lots?
I think so.
Yeah, it would be, there'd come on the tax rolls at that point, so property taxes would be due. And it wouldn't be specific to like the residential lots, but it would have its own separate tax bill that basically they all would get as owners.
Okay.
As part of this, could we limit that to a very, very nominal fee, or if not, nothing, or, I mean, would we be able to do that as part of that agreement, so they don't get gouged?
We can't control the property taxes on it. The land is, it's landlocked, it's not really usable.
Yeah, not a high value.
Right, so, let's say you split it up equally among the 7, so not like the common ownership, but you just split it up 7 ways between those properties, you're looking at a pretty minimal increase.
It'd be a minimal increase, but then if, let's say, in future, one homeowner doesn't pay their taxes, then there's much more ramifications for the other 6 landowners, correct?
Well, yes, so that would, again, that would be up to the common ownership to figure out how they're gonna do the maintenance and upkeep and taxes, right? So, again,
Well-
it's just one solution,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and if there is common ownership, maybe to defer that to all the people that are benefiting, maybe it's the whole subdivision that is the owners instead of just the adjacent properties. And then that would make it so nominal.
Yeah, you would still, you need buy-in from them, like we
Yeah.
couldn't just,
Yeah, then that's more people to get to agree, right?
right? I mean, otherwise, like I said, we could split it up, so it's not just common ownership, but you just split it up among the adjacent parcels, like everybody gets, their lot lines basically extend backwards. So that's another way to do it, it's just we have to draft up a CSM at that point.
So we've spent a lot of time on just this one option. Rick, do you have some other options that we could consider that would stay within our ownership? Or Brian, or?
Heidi, I think there's, going back to what I said before, I think it's just requesting that the residents remove the structures from the area onto their property. And then I really don't see too much of an issue at that point. Obviously the understanding of don't trim the trees. If they need trimmed, we'll come out there and do it. Not that anybody here has done that or whatever, but that would be my big thing and my request there. That would be my other option.
So would that entail like some kind of written legal agreement between the adjacent neighbors and the property, or?
Yeah, I've been sort of wrestling with that idea because if we're allowing others to maintain it, odds of like somebody getting hurt or injured on a flat piece of ground is pretty low. I mean, theoretically, there could be a danger that arises at some point that we just don't know about. It's more or less like, all right, we've got an understanding with the current homeowners, but once the land is transferred, like the house is sold, there's a new owner, then is that same understanding going to be in place? So some sort of agreement that's recorded against all the lots just so everybody's on the same page and future homeowners have notice. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. And again, just so there's an understanding about actual maintenance responsibilities.
And would we be liable for like an accident that would, like, we have a skating rink, someone breaks their arm skating on the skating rink that was on our property, like, would we be legally liable for injuries?
It's a complicated question because the village has general immunity from like slip and fall cases unless there's like a known danger and we do nothing about it. So that's just one of the concerns. If we're not actually maintaining it and we don't know like what's happening on that property, sure there could be a known danger or something that appears.
If we ask them to remove other structures, can we mow it?
Do that one for you.
Yeah, I think we have the ability to mow it. I think where we ran into trouble in the past is we were trying to use larger mowers that I think at times got stuck. Obviously, the homeowners' lawnmowers are quite smaller and lighter, and they had a better ability to get in there and maintain that area. But yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, folks, I guess I'm trying to look at 5 years down the road and all of a sudden we realize there's a 2-car garage back there. and somebody's storing their hot rods. So I'm not trying to be picky here or call anybody out. I'm just trying to keep the best interest of the village in mind and trying to prevent a larger issue to actually arise. So, I think I had a discussion with Heidi on that, and it was roughly the exact same thing Rick said. If there's an issue back there that we don't know about, the sense of liability is really not there. But if we are informed by the resident, hey, there's a tree limb and it could fall, and we don't do anything, and somebody does get hurt, yes, then there's a chance the liability risk is higher. So obviously, I'm sure everybody here would definitely call the village if there was an issue. So, but yeah.
Can I have one thing, or a couple things? Joe Hanson,
If you-
104 Armory Court.
We do have some participants that are on Zoom. If you could bring the microphone and carry it over.
So Jeff Hanson, 104 Arbery Court. I'd have to also say the sentiment with the children. My children, 31 years old, also used that, as well as a number of families that have been in the neighborhood. But the easement that Brian was talking about in limited access here because of the larger mowers, that issue was actually created when a previous homeowner, not the current homeowner, put in this basement access. And so there was some liability on the village for giving that building permit to be able to put in and then limit the access of mowers for the village to go back there.
Hello, we're having the AWS Summit tomorrow at the convention center after lunch.
And then one other aspect I wanted to mention is mowing this. Can we
We
cut?
do have
mute that?
someone speaking in the room. If you could hold your comments.
One aspect that for the last 31 years, I don't know, can we bring up the image again? By us residents mowing that, it's helped, I think, the village minimize the resources of mowing it. But
Try to get that.
at any rate, for the last 31 years, we've been mowing that green space. And if you'll notice, reed canary grass grows natural or wild in that corner towards hydrate. One of the dangerous aspects of that becoming a wildfire is directly south of us. And we don't want to ever see a wildfire jump and get into confines of hydrate. So I honestly believe that that is one aspect that's being overlooked, is this green space is utilized, but it's also providing a safety for something that really, really devastating, just like in Ohio, and even maybe worse. Any other questions?
I appreciate your.
And I think, this easement, it's huge from a sanitary and stormwater, and I hope the village continues to maintain.
I guess in my opinion, I think the best option would be to do the 1/7 ownership. I think if you start extending lot lines, at that point, people on Main Street are probably going to say, well, if you're giving out free land, I want some too. So I think the 1/7 ownership is probably the best way to go. Brian, the teal is the stormwater line-ish? Okay. So it looks like the only things that are even remotely close are a fire pit and that playground. And I mean, I guess, I don't know.
Well,
it
before we
seem-
make a motion that will set something in motion, Do you guys want to just check out the insurance and discuss the property tax and, figure out what you want and then come back in a month?
2 months?
All right.
Oh, right, so the next meeting is on 4th of July, so, coming up later, we were going to just, talk about how we do that schedule, so, I guess we have options of rescheduling that meeting
Yeah,
or
why
just
don't we
not
reschedule?
meeting in July and meeting in August. But I don't want to wait too long if we need to take action prior to August.
I don't know, this isn't an emergency. Do you
Right.
guys mind, we'll give you more time. We'll give you 2 months. Is that a problem? We're not gonna, no action is no action. No action is good. That's what you wanted, right?
I think, again, you've brought forth some very interesting ideas for
Yes.
us.
Just whether they're in your best interest or not.
Yeah, and they have to be in the best interest
Yeah.
for us as a neighborhood and
Yep.
for the village itself, right?
Yep.
It has to be it's got to be a win-win proposition. Nobody is looking to take advantage of one side or the other. I think you've heard from many people. It's been 32 years.
Yeah.
Right, we've maintained the property. We've looked after it. We've looked after its interests in behalf of ourselves as homeowners, residents, and in terms of the village.
Yep.
That's what we're looking to continue to do and to utilize that space.
Yeah.
I like the concept, the idea of potentially extending the lot line because that doesn't involve a group ownership type of situation.
Yeah.
I don't know how feasible that is, and you're going to have some more discussion,
Planning and a lot of-
more discussion on that.
Yeah.
We need to have a little discussion on that, but I would suspect that if that was an opportunity, that's probably the opportunity that most homeowners would like to be able to engage with, if that was the case. But we will check out insurance, we will do some investigation work on our behalf.
And if you can bring back input from all 7, that would be
Yeah.
useful.
And when
In writing or
Sure.
in presence.
when would the August date be?
First Tuesday in August.
Yep.
Does somebody have a calendar they can at least read
I
that
think
date?
it's the first, if I'm remembering correctly.
I'll just add real quick, Rick, if I'd ask you to
Yeah.
check on if we have to include
No.
the Main Street residents
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well. I think if we can do something and ask them how much the property tax increase would be, that'd be nice to know. And then for us, what a CSM costs and what cost there is to us if we do extend the lot lines. So do we have to include the Main Street people? How much the CSM cost? Roughly how much the property tax is? We'll see, we'll just provide as much information as we can between the both of us, and then we can discuss some more, I think, it sounds like.
Are there any other plats in the village that are similar to this, like landlocked public land that? Okay.
Is there?
First Tuesday in August would be August 1st.
August, yep, the first Tuesday is August 1st. The area progress is on one side, because we had talked about with the power lines that go overhead, and then the substation that they were talking about over next to MSB. So that's surrounded by properties with village-owned land in the center. It's like all wooded and the.
So that one's like an outlet, but it's just a weirdly shaped outlet.
Mhm.
So it like actually connects to the road there, and it just like wraps around.
Okay.
So that one is not technically a landlocked, it's just an oddly shaped.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be, just, like, what are we, would we really be opening the door to having all of our property that needs to be maintained by us because it serves a certain function, like stormwater, or like more than just a stormwater pipe, but actually has like infiltration basins, like I don't want those to be transferred to individual property owners because that's very important that the village maintains those so they function properly. So I don't want to like walk into, like, now that we're.
Right, we don't want every outlot to be like
Right.
subject to
Mhm.
something like this. And, I'm not quite sure how these layouts get created, or especially this one dating back to 1987, like what the thought process is. Like I said, I'll take a look at the restrictive covenants and see if there are any more like plat documents that might give a clue. But that's a valid consideration, right? Just making sure that we aren't, even though it's not like a legal precedent that it's gonna bind our hands in the future, it does give people, you know, something that they can point to and at least say like, why were you doing it for them but not us?
Yeah, it seems like this is a very unique situation, but I just want to verify that it is unique enough to do something out of the ordinary than what we would usually.
Yeah, and I would also say like if the property owners do come up with some other solution, like they can certainly pass that along and we can, you know, consider it from the legal side of things and whether or not it would be workable.
And then,
Yep.
as part of whatever we do, can we also, because we have that storm sewer there, can we also just reiterate, don't build any new structures
Right.
around there?
Right, so with an easement like that, it's never really been an issue because it's public land, so, well, it shouldn't be an issue because it's public land. But if there were to be any sort of conveyance, like I said before, we want to have that there's an actual easement agreement that is recorded that's clearly defining what our rights and responsibilities are as the easement holder.
Just a clarification, because the fire, it's actually not from the structure, it's quite the
Sure.
in case that was unclear, because one of my.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned about the fire pit or the swing set, because those are pretty easy to get around or move or dig up or whatever. I'm just, like, don't put a swimming pool in or something, you know?
I do have,
That was one of my,
Yeah.
maybe, I'll jump in here, people are gonna say the same thing, but I guess that's one of my questions. Obviously, this started with somebody wanted to cut trees down in the village, and obviously this is now consuming a lot of your time as well as our time. And the structures that are there are a swing set that we're all happy to move if it's a problem to move, it's not permanent. A fire pit that's literally a Menards fire pit sitting on a piece of sand, which if I need to move the sand, I'm good moving the sand, right? Golf net that's not up, but also not permanent structure that the neighborhood uses. And my sauna that I put in landscaping that I thought was in my yard, but it sounds like maybe we're on the verge. And so if we're making a really big deal about just moving those things, I think you're hearing from us, we're happy for you guys, for it to remain village land, for us to maintain and mow it. The kids, the parents, we want to mow the yard. We don't want to extend our yards. We don't want to put permanent structures. And so if that's sort of the linchpin, I think you need to hear from us, right? We're all saying we're willing to keep those things off.
okay.
We don't want to build new things. If the sauna is it, again, Ed and I are willing to invest the money if we need to move it 2 feet. In the interest of the neighborhood, we'll move it 2 feet. So we want to make sure that that simple option of just, hey, can we mow like we've been for 32 years and you know, agree to not put permanent structures is certainly we would be in favor of.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to you guys, right? Which option do you want? I think I asked earlier, it's not illegal for you guys to mow it as long as we have some agreement. It's the permanent structures that we care about specifically, and maybe we can work out a way that we can start mowing it as well. But you have all the options kind of in front of you, and I think it'd be informative for us, like you did before, if you had a letter from all the residents that you have a unanimous decision, I think would help us a lot. But you kind of think we have a lot of options before you, and you guys can talk about it over the next couple of months.
So you were talking about, Steve Buss, 225 Forston. So you were talking about properties that might be similar to this, like over on Yarrow Hill, there's a waterway that goes behind those properties. What is that? Because those neighbors or those residents maintain that property as well. There's a waterway that goes through there, and I'm sure it's similar where the village couldn't build on it, so it's lower land. I guess I'm just wondering, do they own that? Does the village own that property?
I think the lot lines go to the middle, don't they?
Do they? So that
Can
one
you
is
see the
different?
lot lines? Oh, no, there is a spot, yeah. I know there's a drainage above and below ground. It goes from all the way from the school forest, goes
Yep.
right under there.
Correct.
And leads to the pond.
So I guess that would be a property that would be similar to what's behind our properties.
Yeah,
And I think there, the village does not maintain that as well. I think that the residents maintain that. Yarrow Hill, intersection of Taylor and Yarrow Hill.
If you go south on Yarrow Hill, it would be on the,
No, I knew.
Arrowwood Hills, yeah.
No, thanks, I just wasn't sure where.
But there is accessible access to that,
Yeah.
on Taylor and, you know, from the street, like there's.
Yeah.
It's not landlocked.
Correct.
By properties.
On
The other
south-
part I
on-
wanted-
Actually, in the south, so, yeah, and that, not Taylor, but, yeah, well, yeah, actually Taylor, right, you're right.
the other part, back to the, so I've been there since, or we've been there since 2001. When the village stopped mowing it, they stopped mowing it because they couldn't get to it. They didn't have time to do it, they didn't have enough people, so we were like, well, rather than see it go unmaintained, we maintained it. So it wasn't, we started doing anything, the village asked us to help, and that's what we did. And then throughout the years, different neighbors have moved in and different neighbors have moved out. And it was always just, we maintained it for our own use. So that's kind of what we've always asked. As far as the, putting it into a, splitting it up or having 7 owners of one piece of property, I think that's going to be problematic. From an insurance standpoint, from a property owner standpoint, yeah, I think that's problematic. But then again, the other problem that we want to discuss in the neighbors is if you split it up 7 ways, then somebody that buys my house in a few years could put up a fence on it. And that would be a problem. It's no longer usable for everybody. So I guess we have to discuss that as neighbors.
Yeah,
But yeah, you've given us some options, so I appreciate that.
and maybe the solution to that problematic part of it is forming an HOA, but who knows?
Yeah.
Then that's burden on you.
Or we could remove the structures and just keep mowing it ourselves.
There you go. We're back to square one. That's fine with me.
Either way, there won't be structures that should be built on top of the easement in case, you know,
Right.
if the village has to go in and repair that storm drain,
Right.
you know, you don't want to tear up the, you know,
Surrounding
she
area.
shed that they put in, you know, I mean,
Not yet.
Yeah, and I don't
I think
believe that there
that's
are any
probably,
permanent structures that are in the way of the easement that would present access problems. So absolutely, we'll make sure that. We'll have that discussion as a neighborhood group. We'll come back to you and say, oh, here's our recommendation. We appreciate the time and attention you've given us today and in the prior meeting. And hopefully we'll have some good recommendations for it.
So there's no August meeting? There's no July meeting, there's an August meeting?
August 1st.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll be here.
All right.
and if there's something that you'd like to bring forward ahead of time so we can look at.
Absolutely.
Option, you know. the
Yes, we will not give you the
communication.
option at the 23rd hour. We will give you time to
Or-
review.
Yeah, at the meeting, you know, we don't want to all be surprised on different options.
Sure.
And we'll look into some of the things we talked about on our end also in the meantime. Does that sound reasonable?
So for the August 1st meeting, Heidi, you would like that on the agenda?
Yeah, the August 1st
Yeah,
meeting. yes.
and with a consider again.
With, yeah, consider, Heidi, would it be all right if the folks sent anything they had to my email and I can share that with the committee?
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be great. So
All right.
you have Brian's contact?
Yes, we do.
information?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And then the tax simplification, can we get, the residents get that information as well?
Yeah, that one's a little out of our control because the assessor does it. So, and we don't control what the assessor does or what the board of review decides. But, I mean, my guess would be that the property value itself or like the assessed value would be very minimal. But we can try to get an estimate.
All right, does anyone else have any other questions on things we should find out before August 1st? If anyone thinks of anything, I can send it to Brian and he'll either pass along to Rick or bring all the information together for a meeting.
Do we have to motion to table it till August?
Do we need to do a motion to table or can we just move on?
All
Okay.
right.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And thanks to all the kiddos that I was trying to get up in front of a group of adults and
That was awesome.
talk
Yep, they
on
did
mic,
great.
so props to them.
All right.
Okay. Back to, looks like we've got item 4 and item 6 covered. So then we'll move on to Brian's report.
Oh, oh.
Just a little update on the e-waste curbside. Just an update on the e-waste curbside pickup. Went very well. I think we had one phone call in regards to possible missed pickup, but other than that, everything went, they made several trips to the village, which was a little more than we actually have in our contract, but they were very good about it.
Do you know the biggest item they picked up?
I do not. I didn't want to, they were in actually good spirits. I didn't want to bring them down.
Didn't want to make them lip read.
I didn't, so, yep. And then, you know, the one other topic I did want to touch on is, we got a request from Charlie Rogers on the commission. So everybody knows where Glacier Drum that is, behind 1855. Is that what it is? Anyway, obviously there's no lights there. There's been some nefarious activities happening there. He requested that we look into putting a light. Complicated area. It's actually owned by Hydrite, maintained by the state, and our residents use it. So Hydrite signed off on it. They were fine. Reached out to the state. They're still running it through their process, but potentially they are going to be picking up the bill of the install, which is about $3,500. But the maintenance, so the cost of the lighting is going to be roughly about $1,200 a year.
Wow.
It's one light, but it's actually double the wattage. Right. So I just wanted to kind of run that by the committee, see what your thoughts were on kind of improving the safety, so to speak, of the area.
So is that actually adjacent to the parking lot at the trailhead, or is it where the old trailhead was, where that little shed is? Where the shed is? Yeah.
Where the shed is.
I see, because that's
Yeah,
pretty
and
sheltered by the woods.
correct. Where it would shine to is it would shine to the northwest corner.
Yeah.
So it'd be in that corner and it would shine, so you're not going to have issues with the apartments behind it. It's going to shine towards the tree line that is Hydrate has right before our well.
Apartments
or
behind it? Where,
lift
where's
station.
apartments?
On Reynolds Street.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So it's going to
Yeah,
shine
I
away
see
from
what you
that,
mean.
so we're not going to
Yeah.
have issues there.
I got it, okay.
But it should really add a lot of safety there. But again, it's, you know, $1,200 roughly is their estimate on the operation of that a year. So. And I know what you're going to ask, Heidi. What's the cost of a normal light? And I actually did ask, and they're like, I don't know. You know, I mean, it's going to take some time to actually narrow down how much an area and then narrow that down to one light.
Can we just
so.
add a little solar panel on top of it?
Say, the state should have put in a
It could
solar
pay for
panel
itself,
on,
yeah. Well, $1,200 worth of solar is a lot of solar.
Well, we could look, you know, the problem is the state has about a $5,000 cap of investment
Uh-huh.
that they can put into this. I'm afraid if we did go solar, it's going to be a little more upfront money.
It's fine with me.
Well, and that's okay too, right? I mean, I can definitely look into that. I was looking for I'll be honest with you, I was looking for the cheapest route.
Yeah.
So, you know, trying to get all these, you know, everybody working together.
It's a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
Could you do like a motion sensor light?
I mean, you know, we could definitely look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be interesting. 'Cause I mean,
Blind as soon as they get
Yeah, that sends them running.
Sure. If you'd like me to look into that, I can, for sure. I can definitely look into the solar too, you know, and see what you know, generally Alliant is our contractor of choice. They're experts in the field. I can see what they can offer.
Even if it just cut half of it, the bill, or a quarter of the bill, it'd be at least,
Most definitely, I can do a little more research on this.
doesn't have to cover the whole thing. So.
Sure. But that's all I had, unless there's any other questions.
Nope.
Oh, the board, you had the road maintenance project bid, and that did go to the board
Yeah,
yesterday,
I
so we
was-
can get rolling on it.
I was going to touch on that, but Josh stole my thunder.
Oh, wait.
So he brought it up in his report. But yes, the bid was, Wolf Paving was the low bid on that. Like Josh said, it was just under 220,000. So it came in a little lower than we expected. So it's good news for us.
All right, any questions for Brian on the director's report?
What was the expected price for that? Was it 220 grand or?
We were expecting actually for it to come in at 250.
Oh,
Maybe I shouldn't, should I have said that? No, you know, and that's just a rough guesstimate on our
Yeah.
part, to be honest with you.
Make any
Um,
difference, we can't hear it anyhow.
Oh,
Sorry,
oh, I'm
Larry.
sorry. Maybe back up a little bit. I don't know, sometimes if
Your
you're too
mic was-
close. Yeah, I know.
That's it.
All right, so the,
Minutes?
yep, so then we move on to item 8. Larry, did you have any questions on Brian's report that was in the packet? If you,
Nope, nope.
okay,
Okay.
all right.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June, no, I'm sorry, May.
May.
May, yep, May 2nd, way back. Motion by Jim, second by Chris, to approve the minutes. Any other comments, edits, changes? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain?
I wasn't here.
All right, that motion carries. Then we'll move on to item 9, so tentative date for the next meeting, as we talked about earlier, July 4th is the first Tuesday, so cancel that, and August 1st, we'll bring back the Arbory Court, Foreston, we might be toward capital projects and all of that by then, but if anyone else has any future agenda items. And August 1st sounds like a date that'll work for most.
Yep.
Excellent, all right, then we just seek one final motion.
Oh. Second.
Motion and second to adjourn, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
all right.
Aye.
Thanks so much for your time this evening. Have a good,
July.
yeah, June and July.
Who's that person that was randomly talking?